survival of the fittest is an outdated theory. And I guarantee you there's not an atheist evolutionist that catches him on that or comments in that direction. They purposely overlook the inconsistencies in their own atheistic evolutionary dogma.
Okay, there's no such thing as an atheist evolutionary dogma. What we look for is social norms and our social condition and morality. We don't look to evolution for those answers. Okay, evolution is about how life evolves, and certainly you even recognize there's a difference between the way humans act and the way animals act. So we don't look to evolution to define social morality. You're trying to apply evolution to a social theory. That's why social Darwinism is outdated, because we know that that's not correct. We know that we have morals and humanity, and it separates us from the animals. So evolution is not a moral theory of any kind, and I don't need anybody to call me on it. That's why it's an outdated theory. They used to think that. They used to think like you, but that was like, 100 years ago. So nobody thinks that no more, and nobody's going to call me on it, because, like I said, it's outdated theory.
God does not have a body like you and I. God is a spirit, and we worship him in spirit and in truth. Jesus Christ is the Son of God who provides a mechanism or a vehicle by which we are saved. God humbled himself, if you can follow, and became a man so that we would have a payment for sin, a righteous and just and holy payment for sin.
Thank you, GEERUP, for that lesson. Now, you may not know this, but I was a Christian for 30 years, so I understand spiritual substance and that God is not physical matter, but we're made in his image. So even if he's a spiritual being and we're made in his image, wouldn't that mean he has a dick? Wouldn't that mean he has a butthole? I mean, think about it. If not, is he like a Ken doll? I mean, what's God's genitalia like? Does he have genitalia? I mean, I know you don't know because you've never seen God's crotch, but think about it. If we're made in his image and we're made out of his image, whether it's spiritual substance or physical substance, it's a looks thing, right? We look like him. And also, spiritual substance is an outdated theory. It's called the ether, and they got rid of that about 150 years ago, too.
Did God pop into existence one day? Oh, he exists and always will. He has no beginning and no end. He's eternal. Science understands the concept here because they apply matter and energy as eternal and always. So don't think that you can't comprehend something always existing or never having an end, because science is claiming that matter itself is eternal. I'm saying matter, unintelligent matter, is not eternal. Energy is not eternal. God is eternal. He's the starting point of all things.
Okay, I understand that matter and energy is eternal. That's what I think. But you're saying that God is the beginning point, so you are saying that he blipped into existence. Or are you saying that he was eternal and sitting in the dark for a gajillion years? Because you're saying both. You're saying in one breath he's eternal, and then in the other breath that he's the starting point. Well, in a negative infinity timeline, there is no starting point. It's eternal. That's what eternal means. So you're saying both things, and, that's why you're
brainwashed to the lie. Think that you have freed yourself from brainwashing by becoming an atheist is naive. It is naive. There is just as much brainwashing going on in the scientific sector as in the religious sector. I mean, we have brainwashing everywhere. I mean, I agree. Study these things out for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I'm certainly not going to take Cosmic Zen's word for it. I got to study it out for myself. And I've studied out my faith for myself. I have formulated these understandings because of the information I have read and gleaned. But ultimately, why I'm a Christian, why I believe in God, is because I've been touched. I've been touched by God. God has intersected in my life and has helped me open my eyes. I was once blind, and now I see.
Okay, I understand that you feel that you've been touched by God, or that you've had a personal experience with God. I feel the same thing. And it's a mental delusion. Now, it seems very real to us. But the thing I want to talk about is you say that atheism brainwashed me, or science brainwashed me. I became a free thinker upon my own observations as a teenager, and then again as an adult when I heard that other people had those same thoughts. And I pulled myself out of the religious delusion twice. And you say that you've spent a lot of time studying, but like I said in the video, you've just studied that one book. You haven't done the research in all the other subjects, and if you had, it wouldn't back up the faith that you're trying to, pawn off on me. And if you had done the research, then you would understand the impossibilities that I'm trying to point out that you believe in, which I guess will come up later in the video. It's funny that you're telling me to do the research when I'm the one that's pwning you because of your lack of research. That's freaking hilarious. Let's proceed.
You're only an intellectual if you can break past the hardwiring of your parents and their indoctrination. What about all those children being indoctrinated now that have no God at all? I mean, their parents are flat-out atheists or secular humanists, and children from these families become Christians. I mean, that's a possibility. It happens.
As for children being raised atheists and turning Christian, I've only encountered one person, but I'm sure that possibly happens to other people. As people grow, especially if they have secular parents, they might grow into learning their own religion and finding out, what is right or wrong for them. The secular parents, I guess I can't say if they would or wouldn't push their free thought on their children, but hopefully they would learn by example and get past that. So I think you're just kind of reaching into this empty barrel of non-existent evidence to try to support that claim. I would be interested to know how many atheists become Christians as compared to Christians who become atheists. Because the atheist number is rising, the more and more knowledge is spread.
Okay, his father, rocket scientist, Christian rocket scientist, but he spends his whole time honing me and calling me an intellectual inferior, insulting me. All the while, his father is in my camp, and he's insulting his own father by insulting me. This is so hypocritical and ridiculous. I don't know if anybody else catches this, but this is just insulting to his father.
Okay, about my dad, you're right, it is a little bit insulting towards my father. And my dad died 10 years ago. If he was alive today, I would be having these same conversations with him. Whether I could convince him or not, I don't know. But there's no denying that there's been Christian scientists and Christian intellectuals who have done the research, but maybe they haven't heard all the atheist arguments. It's only becoming popular now because of the mass media. It's not like these arguments have been spreading through the social consciousness this whole time. I mean, 80% of America is Christian. These things are just now being heard, even though they're ancient arguments. And it's not hypocritical. I would have this argument with my dad just like I'm having it with you.
Okay, it is rational to believe that there is a cause for the things around us. It's rational. It's logical. If something exists, something must necessarily exist to put it there. That's pure logic. Pure, unrefutable logic. Things don't pop into existence from nothing. Do you see the gravity of that? Now, as a Christian, a Bible-believing, God-fearing Christian, I attribute that something, life, to God's handiwork. That shouldn't be hard for you to imagine. And your father, a rocket scientist, embraced this very same fact as well. And you call us intellectually inferior because we take a position of logic? Who's pawning who?
I agree that all effects have a cause. But you're saying that your God made things without a cause, that he was made without a cause, and he made things out of nothing. So, I mean, how can you say I'm even pwning myself? You're continually taking both sides of the argument here. You're intellectually inferior. You think you've got it all figured out, and you're coming off like a wise ass, which I can appreciate on a certain level. But you're saying in one instance, something can't come from nothing. But in the other breath, you're saying your God came from nothing, and that he can make things out of nothing. So, no, you're pwning yourself.
Just because Richard Dawkins tells you that God doesn't exist, you don't have to believe it. Just because Darwinian evolution and the origin of species tells you that we came from the primordial slime, you don't have to believe it. We have authoritarian figures in our lives, Christian, atheist, You don't have to believe everything that comes out of the mouth of an authority. You have to do the research on your own.
I know you like to use Richard Dawkins as a crutch, but I was an atheist before I ever knew who Richard Dawkins was. And it's not like anybody told me to become an atheist. It was the research that you tell me I need to do. You need to go back and look at that and look at some of that shit. And really look at it. Not just look at the links, but click the links and read some stuff. Because you don't know anything about any of the sciences, or you wouldn't be saying the stupid crap to me. I pwned you for your lack of research. You only look in one book. I've looked in hundreds. And you're going to tell me I need to do research. Dude, I did more research in that video than you've ever done in your whole life. And this is another example of your hypocrisy, because you're the one that gets all your information from the authority figure. Okay? Your authority is the Bible, Jesus, God. And that's the only authority. And it's imagination, so really, you're getting all your information from an imaginary authority figure. At least I am tapping into the information of the geniuses and masters of all the different sciences. Not just one book. All the books. Even your Bible. That's how I know what's wrong.
Again, these assumptions. What's the idiom? When you make an assumption, you make an ass out of you and me. This whole video is basically an assumption.
You're right, I do make a lot of assumptions because I don't know you that well. I mean, I've seen your videos, I think you've seen some of mine, but it's not like we're friends and we've hung out and known each other for years. So I am making some assumptions based on my experience with Christianity, because you do have a dogma, and it's safe to assume certain things within the dogma, even though there are many, many variations. Certainly I could be wrong about something that you believe, because every Christian has a different belief, because you're working with the dogma, but nobody really follows it. Okay, you have a different version. I'm sure your sister has a different version. I'm sure your parents have a different version. Now, you all might think Jesus is the Son of God, but when it comes down to all the little nitpicky things, there's 2 billion Christians on the planet, and there's 2 billion versions of Christianity.
Let me give you some real wisdom. Wash your hands after you take a crap.
This is one big joke for these guys.
Well, it's a little bit of a joke, but I mean, seriously, the guys in the Bible didn't know about germs and stuff. So, I mean, even though I make it sound funny, it's true. They didn't know to wash their hands after they took a crap. So what if I've said it more than once? It doesn't make it any less true. That's ridiculous, but I'm glad you got a laugh out of it, because I like making people laugh. Let's go.
Science is knowledge, and that together we're building a body of knowledge so that we can advance the human race.
Where are we taking the human race? Where are we taking it? Science starts genetically modifying our food, and we're basically self-defeating ourselves. When science creates the atom bomb, thank you, science, thank you, science, and then annihilates and brings a threat to the world, like an unprecedented threat. How do you blame that on Jesus Christ? You want to blame everything, all the evils of the world, on Christians and people of faith. You got to take into account all the godless science out there building the war machine. For what purpose? To annihilate this world. And we're going to genetically modify our food stock and then make it virtually impossible for the small village farmer to produce a renewable food source, and literally annihilate him through commercialization of insecticides that have to be applied upon food to make it grow.
I agree, nuclear bombs are bad. But ask yourself this, who hired those scientists to make the bomb? Who were the guys who dropped the bomb? Christian soldiers, Christian presidents, Christian senators and congressmen. Christian people run the American military complex. And about the genetically modified food, I mean, there's good and bad about that. I really don't want to turn this into a debate about what's good or bad about genetically modified food. But if they're finding ways to feed the starving masses, then I think that's great. And you're also not even mentioning all the good things that science does, like give you a computer and a camera, electricity, your vehicle. You don't even mention about medical science and all the antibiotics and vaccines and the high-tech surgical shit for our bodies, you know, MRIs, CAT scans, getting closer to curing diabetes and cancer, all kinds of stuff. You just dismiss all that.
Atheists believe that all of life has originated from a rock, a lifeless rock. And from that lifeless rock sprung all the intelligent beings that they claim to be.
I don't believe that life came from a rock. I believe that we're made out of carbon, mostly, and that we're made out of star substance, and that all the elements that are known, even ones that we don't even know, exist, and we are made up of a collection of those things. But that doesn't mean I think that we came from a rock. I think we came from carbon. I also want to point out that you ended the refutation of the video before the pwnage even starts. So how can you say you weren't pwned when you didn't even get to the pwning section? You should have just watched the last half of the video, because that was the part that taught you about the things you need to know. And you probably didn't even look at the description box, even though I spent like 4 hours putting those links in the description box. Just like Christians, you see the beginning of something, or you read the beginning of something, and you think you're an expert know-it-all of that subject without doing the research. That was the point. That's why I pwned your ass, because you haven't done the research. You only researched the one book from your one authority that both makes and somehow doesn't make all the matter and energy of the universe. At least you got the last part of it right.
I am the Antichrist.
I've been around for long, long years, sowing many a man's soul and faith. I was there when Jesus Christ had his moments of doubt and pain.